Welcome to Week 1, edition number 2 of the new Sportsline Podcast here on CHCH. I'm Bubba O'Neill. Folks, no region in the province, perhaps even the country, has produced a number of high-level athletes, coaches, executives, broadcasters, and in this case, officials. Many years ago, I met a young fella in college that shared my same love for sports. Now, we would later go on to host an award-winning local sports show called Halton Sports Week that laid down the tracks for my career, honestly. Now, you want to check this out.
We might be able to show you that footage quickly before this match gets underway. Bubba knocked out unconscious as the special guest referee by Bullwhip Johnson. Zach, what do you got to say about that,
I wonder if
Bubba?
he's got the guts to come around this way.
Yeah,
He still hasn't looked at me in the eye.
There he is.
He hasn't looked at me in the eye. They're the veterans of this one. Oh, it's a brawl at center ice. And there's center ice. There we go. Oh, my. Oh, right hands and left hands meeting exchange. Everyone's involved. I can't believe it.
Karan and Parker were the two that started it. Big guy, he comes in. Oh, yeah, Clint. You? I'm going to take on the tunnel up from the own shot, guys.
Icky Woods, eat your heart out. I'm going straight at those guys and scoring 6.
Oh, well, he's the oldest son of Fox 40 Whistle Company and Fluke Transport King, Ron Foxcroft. Steve's resume long and lengthy, an established OUA and NCAA basketball official, Fox 40 executive, a member of the chain gang for the NFL's Buffalo Bills, and an NBA replay referee liaison. And still to this day, he's on local television hosting all kinds of material. Pleased to bring in my friend Steve Foxcroft from so many moons ago.
So many moons ago is right. I am howling at those clips. That takes us back, but that was so much fun. And, you know, let me expand on what you said. I knew you when you were at Assumption, and we'd go to Nelson Stadium for the football games, and you'd be up there on the mic, too. When we didn't play, you were on the mic. And then we go to Mohawk College together, not knowing, but we go together for radio broadcasting, and on the first day of class, they get everyone to stand up and introduce themselves. And you stood up and introduced yourself as Clint O'Neill. And I'm going, who's that? Like, I've only known you as Bubba, where I went to M.M. Robinson, you went to Assumption. So then when it got to my turn, I got up and introduced myself and corrected you in front of the whole class. Like, forget Clint O'Neill. His name is Bubba. And then we've been inseparable really ever since. It's been a long time.
Well, that was like my high school nickname.
Yeah.
And I'd figured that probably as I grow up a little bit and I get into college that we ditched that name, and it kind of carried on. And then when I got hired here, my executive director said, "Do you mind if we still call you Bubba?"
I love it.
So that kind of continued on throughout the years. But you think about those great years and our love for sports, and I think it extended to not only the professional stuff, because we always talked about when we were developing that show that wouldn't it be great to give these kids the attention, because we were talking about in Texas, there's 10,000 people at a football game. And when we played sports, there was 50 people. How do we give local kids attention that they deserve in a region like Halton and Hamilton where the talent is so incredible?
You know, it was funny. It went back to me. I was at McNabb High School. I was Shea Gilchrist-Alexander was the second best player out of McNabb. Let's just say that, okay? And then I transferred to M.M. Robinson to play football. And I'm playing football, junior football, scored a touchdown, and Dave Rashford came up to me and asked me for an interview. Yeah. So I gave him the words. And then
Spectator reporter.
Reporter. And then a few years later, I'm still in grade 12, or maybe second time through a grade 12, but I'm in grade 12. And then he's doing the local sports report on the local cable show, Halton Sports Week at the time. And they asked me to fill in because he wanted to go away for March break. Well, never left. And then, of course, you joined in on that. But we always said that I was so enamored with being in the local paper as a high schooler that we needed to give that attention. And that's how we started out, and we made a name for ourselves. But the best thing is we made a name for a lot of local kids.
Yep.
And we always said, if you can do well in Halton, Greater Hamilton, then you're already on a world scale because of the population base, the competition level, and people that win in this area and do well, they go on, they're automatically at a world level. It was great.
You know, to clean up on what we did on that local TV show, I think really we reached the pinnacle. I think for the athletes is when Jesse Lumsden was playing for Nelson High School, and the thought that this was the first year of Hamilton participating in the Metro Bowl. And there was always this thought that a Burlington school taking on the big Toronto school, and they would go on to have I can't remember the name of the school, but they had a running back by the name of Darren Dietrich who went to Nebraska. They were the Kings. And Nelson went in there and beat them.
Beat them up.
And beat them up. And
Coach Stacy's going to see this and then give us heck. Jesse, too. Neil, his mom, everyone's going to give us heck for not knowing who they played. That Central Tech?
I think that might have been it, yeah.
Central Tech. I might have saved us there. But, yeah, it was so much fun, those Metro Bowl days. But seeing those clips, the hockey team at Nelson, the women's sports that we covered, the Macho Camacho man at Loyola, and we had so many memories there. But you stole the show with the All Bubba team, which was like the All Madden team. We had the All Bubba team, but the Bubba workout, the Bubba breakaway, it was.
What is a workout?
Yeah, exactly.
I forgot.
And the number of fish and chips that we nailed down in our days at Mohawk College is record-breaking. But so many great memories, and seeing those clips just brought it back. I can't help but smile.
Let's focus on you here. You are a guy that, post high school and secondary school, sport has been in your life the whole time. And to this day, many moons later, it continues. And I want to kind of get into, your family. Your family, obviously, Ron, referee, the first guy to ever do it as a Canadian in NCAA and Olympics as well, too. When you look at the example that he set, you were able to follow that.
Yeah, and it was great because Dad, the first memory, 76 Olympics in Montreal, biggest crowd in Canada to see a game. And in 72, many people might not know, the Americans didn't accept the silver medal for men's basketball. The game was over. They put a few seconds back on the clock. They brought the teams back out on the floor. This is in Munich, Germany, too, where the Israel, like all the shootings and all this stuff. Mark Spitz won all his gold medals. Big Olympics. They put time on the clock. Russia wins. Americans go, that was wrong. So now in 76, it's like, don't mess up the Olympic final. And my dad does the Olympic final, and his pee got stuck in the whistle, which led to the Fox 40, of course. That's a longer story. But it got me, I grew up with it, right? And going to M.M. Robinson at the time, I'm a young kid, not even a driver's license. My grandpa had to drive me to the games, where I had to take the bus. And my good buddy, Ray Samuels, X-Ray I called him, he would go to fifth period English class and get the work. And I would copy it down. So he got me through high school, barely. And then I would be out refereeing and making $50 a day or something like that. And then it grew from there. And like you said, we've had opportunities. My dad was the first Canadian. I went down and refereed in the States a lot. And it was fun times. And then it led to this NFL, NBA opportunities as well.
Before we get to that, I remember just briefly there, was there not a game in the NCAA where you got to officiate with your dad?
Yes, the very first game I did at George Mason University. And it was my dad and I. So it was really cool when we look back to, because we didn't get to ref in Canada together. That's right. So the OUA stuff we talked about, I refereed all this university for 25 years or so, and Canadian championships and all of that. But the one thing I never had was an opportunity to ref with Dad very much, because he was in the States all the time.
Right.
So it was really special and really cool that my first NCAA game was with Dad, and it was at George Mason.
And then moving along there, your next brother, Dave, he goes on to do football. You kind of hung around basketball.
Yeah, so that happened where Dave and I were coming up and we were both becoming pretty good at it and getting bigger assignments and all of that. But here was the kicker for me. We both refereed a lot of football. So high school football at the time. And there wasn't turf fields. There was like one turf field. It was Iverwin Stadium at the time. Yep. So we would come in from doing a football game and it was cold and it was wet and it was muddy. And I went through so many pairs of football cleats because they were so muddy you couldn't even wear them. You couldn't even wash them to get them good. And you come back in through the gym. Like, remember after football practice, the football team would walk in, the girls would be playing basketball, and they'd have to stop the game, and we'd trudge through and muck up the floor.
Yes.
So I'd go in, and my buddies would be refereeing the girls' high school basketball game. And I'd look over, and they're making just as much money. They're dry. They're, having fun. And I come in, and I'm filthy. I have to go home and wash everything, just hoping for the best. So I said to Dave, you're pretty good at football. Why don't you stay at football? I'm going to go over to basketball. And that's what I did. And then we both kind of went up through the ranks. But Dave, of course, 25 years CFL.
Just recently retired.
Just recently came off the field. And he was going to go to the Big Ten, but I think he's leaning towards not because the body is sore. Like he tells me on Monday mornings, I know that I refereed on the weekend.
Right.
And, going down to the States too, what if he goes to Iowa? It's not like when he goes to Regina, it's like old home week for him. He knows where to go. He knows where the hotel is. He knows where the stadium is. He knows what door to go into. If you go to Iowa, how do you get there? Where do you fly into? Which hotel do you stay at? Where do you get to the stadium? Where do you go in? So it's kind of like starting over.
Right.
So I think he's going to stay local, train the up-and-coming refs, and do the command center too. So good for him.
And it's neat how, and I think a lot of people don't realize this, but in lots of, I think maybe only Major League Baseball, where the umpires, that's their job. Whereas I think in NFL football, CFL football, even the NBA, you're an official, but you also have another job during the week, your regular job.
That's well said. And I often said, maybe the NBA is different. The NBA is full-time now because of the travel, but they have the off season where they can do their other thing, right? So, but it's interesting you say that because I always said, like football officials, it's the toughest because they basically do one game a week.
Right.
Basketball, hockey, everyone else is doing 3-5 games a week.
Right.
So tough. They're very critical of the football officiating. Remember, even Patrick Mahomes, everyone's always, there's a call a week that people go nuts in the NFL, CFL as well. But I think they just need to referee more. So I always thought if you had a basketball ref and taught them how to do football, the officiating would improve. Or take the refs, make them do a college game too. Do a college game Saturday, NFL Sunday, and a midweek lower level game. Like just referee more.
Right.
Because it's such a fast game, right?
And it's getting faster.
See it. Yeah. And so repetition makes it easier. Like you're on podcast number 2. When you get to podcast number 100, now you've done 1 million sportcasts. So you know this. But remember the first time?
Oh.
Nerve-wracking, right?
Yeah.
But repetition makes it easier.
There's no doubt about that.
I think same with officiating. Have them ref more games in football.
Now you've continued, and you're maybe not on the floor officiating, but you've branched off into some really, really interesting fields of officiating in its sense. I cannot tell you how many times I have been told, because of our connection with our, going back many years on local TV, where people have said to me, we'll start here. I was watching the football game, the Bills game, and I don't know, they did an ISO shot of the head coach, and I think I saw Foxcroft on the sidelines at the Bills game. Can you tell us what that was all about?
That's hilarious. So I've been doing the Bills chain crew for 31 years, and the move that I have down to a science, including the Sunday's Kansas City game, is this one. They interview the coaches usually at halftime, either before or after. So my move is always go right behind the coach while the interview's on, and then give it the like, look, so sure enough, Sunday night, McDermott comes out, so I know what's happening. So I nailed my spot without even looking this time. And my brother Dave knows this is happening every 31 years, every game I do it. So Dave's at home filming it, because when I first started, there was no cell phones or anything like that. But now I got all these videos. Earlier, the Dallas game, Aaron Andrews doing the pregame kickoff. Well, who's behind? Look for the guy in the red vest.
You can find the camera. You know exactly. For the people that don't really know, what is the chain crew?
Oh, chain crew. Yeah, good question. And it's so intricate. You think it's easy, but so we measure the first downs basically, but it all starts with the initial spot. We got to be right on there. So I'm the guy with the red vest, only one with the red vest, and I have the pole with the number on it. So I keep track of the downs. So first down, second down, and I work with the referee and the down judge to make sure everything's right that way. Interesting. A few years ago, the snow game in Buffalo, LaShawn McCoy scored in overtime. I think it was the Colts.
Yes, it was.
We have like a foot of snow. No one can tell what's going on. They couldn't clear the field. So the first series of the game, it's like 2nd and 3, but the ref signaled first down. So they go to the media timeout, and I call them over. I said, look, I've been here 30 years. I know what's going on. I have good sight lines. Why don't I put the pole down and then you look over and I'll tell you if it's short or long? Because the first one you gave a first down, they needed 3 more yards.
Oh.
He goes, that would be the best. He goes, I have no idea what's going on. I don't know where the ball is. So yeah, let's do it like that. And I have a 7:00 flight. I just want to get the heck out of here. Let's get this game moving. So that's what we did. I would put the pole down. Right. He would look over to see where it was in relation to the lead stick.
Okay.
And then go from there.
The thing is, where you are located, again, we'll talk about it, you're right in the middle of everything with the players and the coaches. Over 31 years of doing that, that's a lot of head coaches. I don't get you in trouble.
Yeah.
Who's the easiest coach to, because obviously there's going to be lots of chatter.
Yes.
Who's the easiest coach to deal with?
I'd say there's 2. Mike Shanahan, father of Kyle, Denver at the time.
Sure.
And then I love and think that Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh, the best.
Right.
He's a communicator. In the playoff game recently, it was neat to be up close and watch him communicate. And he was preaching details. He was saying to his coaching staff through the headset, coach details. And that says a lot, right?
Right.
In other words, take care of the small things and everything. And they're a team that really, without a quarterback and all that, they made the playoffs, and he always makes the playoffs.
Yes.
He does something right.
Yes,
know?
clearly. The whole organization, 3 head coaches and 4 head coaches in its entire existence?
Yeah. They do something right there. And he'll probably coach up. Remember we talked about Larry Angus, Coach Angus?
Yes.
He always overachieved, right?
Yes.
He always got the kids to play better than the talent on the roster. And I think Mike Tomlin is the professional example of that, where he takes his roster and he coaches them up. For some reason, it's really cool to see. We have ones. So coaches, Shanahan and Mike Tomlin over the years. There's a lot of guys that just won't have any contact with you, like Belichick. He's one.
No
There's
contact.
just no contact.
Unless he's yelling at you. Unless he's yelling at you.
And unless he's got something to say. Andy Reid the other day was pretty good. We bumped into each other by accident.
Right.
He just goes, "Hey man, you're okay," and gives you a little bump and off you go. But most of them don't have much to do with us. I think some of them are smart because they'll come over to me and ask, "Is that short or long? Is it 4th down, 3rd down and a foot, or is it a first down?"
Right.
And to me, that's getting the information sooner so they can coach the next play.
Right.
So I think that's just good coaching, being smart, getting ahead of it, details, like Coach Tomlin would say. We had one a couple years ago. The refs marked off 14 yards instead of 15 yards, which was a big deal. So I told Patrick, the down judge, I said, "You only went 14 yards. This is important." He goes, "We've checked with replay, and they said it was right." And I go, "Well, it's not right." So like that. So they go, "Well, they're saying it is." The next day on my phone, it comes up NFL Park Avenue. And I'm going, this isn't good. Sure enough, they called and said, "You were right. We just checked it.
Wow.
So thank you for speaking up." Patrick, the head linesman, told us about it.
Right.
And good job, that kind of thing.
That's good.
Earlier this year, we had one where they gave him a first down, and I said to the ref, where the ball is, it's 2nd and 1. So I'm not moving. You guys do what you want, but it's 2nd and 1.
Right.
And then they go, oh, thanks. They checked it out and they brought it back and made it 2nd and 1. So I'm not doing that to pat myself on the back, but it's to give you an example to the question of what do we do? What does the chain crew do? And that's the little things that are important that we do is we keep track of things, basically.
Last thing on this, from your angle, and I think anyone that is in our industry that works these games kind of gets this, because you see football, most people on television, and you just see it as one particular speed. When you're on that turf, you see the massiveness, how huge these guys are, the contact. Obviously, guys are running to the sideline. Have you ever been bowled over?
Oh, twice by CJ Spiller. Twice. Broke my pole one time. And so here's another thing about the chain crew for me. So when the quarterback comes over or a guy who is still eligible to throw the ball, they ask me to go straight back with my pole because that's how they officiate it. Remember, when you're watching it at home on TV, they have the yellow line.
Yes.
Like, have you ever been with someone at a game and they ask the question, well, where's the yellow line
There's
on
no
the field?
real yellow line.
No, that's for TV. So what they asked me to do is go straight back with my pole so they can referee whether the quarterback's over the line of scrimmage or not when he throws the ball. No yellow line. So this time, like, I've had so many close calls, even with Josh. He's come at me a few times, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, because I'm too old for that now. When I was younger, Brian Cox from the Miami Dolphins, and
Yes.
remember, I call him $10,000 Cox because he came out of the tunnel in Buffalo and gave the finger to the crowd in Buffalo, both fingers, and he got fined $10,000, so $5,000 a finger. Well, in that game, he comes over to the sideline and he sacks Jim Kelly, and they both land on me.
Oh.
I was younger at the time, so I could take it a little bit, but two big guys like that on me. And I always remember Jim Kelly looking at me and going, you okay? And it would be like us, right? Like, yeah, I'm okay. And meanwhile, you just want the ambulance, the paramedics to come and check you out because they were huge. But so it is intricate. We go straight back on that. And the other thing is the lineman.
Right.
So often you'll follow the ball carrier, but it's the lineman coming in behind or leading the way that you have to worry about.
Right.
You have to keep your eyes on. When the ball's gone, a big old lineman can still come and wipe you out. So be careful of that. Keep your eye on that. And also what you alluded to, the speed of these guys, 300 pounds, Bubs, and they're coming at you cat-like, like
And they're not thinking about
fast.
you.
No, that's for sure. So you have to be careful. But it's like in basketball too, the pro level. The difference, not so much nowadays, but between Canada and Americans. When we were in high school, the difference was the first step. For a guard dribbling the ball, the first step to the basket. In America, it was quicker. Canadians were a little slower first step. But now we mentioned Shea Gilgeous-Alexander earlier. His first step's pretty quick, right?
Iverson.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So not bad for the second best player from McNabb.
No, certainly
you know
not.
what I mean? So it is quickness and size.
Let's change it, and I'm going to say the same thing over again. I've had many people say to me, I've been watching Raptors games, and there's a controversial call with the officials, and the referees are barking with the coach. And then the referee goes over to what appears to be a referee table in the middle of the arena, where I guess Herby, the announcer, is. And I think I saw Steve Foxcroft. That is you.
That is me. That's
So your
right.
other role is?
Yes, the NBA referee liaison, the replay official, whatever you want to call it. I think the official title is courtside administrator or something like that. But we help out with we review every 3-point shot, first of all, that to make sure a toe wasn't on the line. We review every shot close to the shot clock expiration to make sure that the shot was off before, so we can change rulings. So a 3 to a 2, a 2 to a 3, a made basket to a no basket if the shot clock's expired. We also do coaches challenges.
Right.
So I got to turn on the light. Someone's got to turn on the light. There's a green light for a coach's challenge, a blue light for a scorer's change.
Okay.
But we also work with the replay center in Secaucus, New Jersey.
So you're
and the game officials.
okay. So you are the connection between the head official
and
Secaucus, New Jersey.
The replay center. So we work.
So everything's reviewed there.
Yes, everything's reviewed there. So we're the people that make it happen, help out, all that kind of thing.
Right.
And the craziest part, like, you try and make it sound more than what it is. You know what I mean? Like, everyone wants to be more important than what it is. We sit at center court. Like, we sit right at center court. Like, Drake is to my right. Like, Drake is over here.
Yeah.
I'm at center court with Herby, who you mentioned, who's the best. And a couple things we had when I went to train at UNLV in Las Vegas. So when I first got hired, it was RJ Barrett and Zion Williamson's first year coming out of college.
Sure.
So they were having a game in the summer league, and it was on ESPN because it was a big deal. These two kids coming out.
Zion.
So it was my first game training for this new role they had. They used to have us do observing. Now it's this courtside administrators. So I'm at UNLV in Vegas. My dad came with me because we split the games.
Okay.
So he's back at the hotel. I'm working the game. It's late at night, last game of the day, prime time for ESPN. All of a sudden, I feel the shaking, like there's a shaking. And I'm thinking, it's like when you're doing a high school tournament, there's always games, the next game. So I'm thinking the teams are walking behind me for the next game. And then I found out it was actually an earthquake. An earthquake happened in Vegas.
Whoa.
And I said to I go on the thing in Secaucus, I go, remember how you told me if something goofy happens to let you know? And they go, yeah. I go, there's an earthquake. And they go, we were wondering why the scoreboard was swaying. I go, yeah, it's an earthquake. They go, stop the game.
Yeah.
So I go, stop the game. So we stopped the game, and Kiki Vanderway from the league office comes out, and they ended up calling the game. So this big game with RJ and Zion only got to play a few minutes because of an earthquake.
And you got no reps.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other one that reminded me of the next one is with Herby, because you mentioned Herby. Yeah. So in Toronto a couple of years ago, the pregame fireworks went off for the intros, and it got caught in a speaker above the court. Do you remember this?
I remember this game. Yes.
So all of a sudden the speaker catches on fire. Yeah. So now there's a fire in the arena. Zach Zarba's the ref, and all of a sudden a guy taps me on the shoulder, and it's the full-fledged fire chief, but he's wearing the hat, the garb, everything. And he goes, there's a speaker on fire. I go, yeah, I can kind of see it and smell it, and there's smoke everywhere. He goes, we're going to evacuate the sections beneath it. We should be okay. So I go to Secaucus. Remember how you told me something goofy? So I go, the speaker's on fire, but the fire marshal said da-da-da-da-da. They go, okay, keep playing. So I tell Zach, the ref. So then a few minutes later, tap on the shoulder, fire marshal again. He goes, we got to evacuate the building because of air quality, and this thing's really on fire.
It was over top of fans.
Yeah, exactly. So now I go to Secaucus again. Hey, remember how they want us to evacuate the arena. Who wants you to? The fire marshal. Oh, okay. If it's the fire marshal, I guess you better evacuate the arena. So call Zach over. Zach Zarba, great guy, referee. Zach, we got to evacuate the arena. We got to stop the game. Okay. So now Herby gets on the mic. Ladies and gentlemen, because of a fire, but I want you to be orderly and I'll go slow, but evacuate the building. So now there's a ruckus. The fans start to go crazy. And Herby did the best thing I've ever seen. He hushed the crowd. He just goes, shh. And it went pitch quiet in the arena. And he goes, like I said, leave orderly, stay calm, everything's okay. And the crowd just listened to Herby. So the power of Herby, he's the best.
Well, he's been there since day one.
Yeah,
I mean, I worked with him. I met him in the 1996 World Basketball Championships. I did some. This is like another side story. It's about you actually, and it's not about me. But I did some player security stuff, right? And I got to be kind of a liaison, sort of whatever you need. What Coach Tomjanovich of Team USA, that had been Dream Team number 2, right? Where Shaquille O'Neal comes over to me because here he sees the only black person in the entire facility, right?
Yeah.
And he's asked me who I am, and then I tell him, by the way, my last name's O'Neal too, right?
Yeah.
Like that, spelled a little differently, but O'Neal too. And he goes, "You're my baby brother."
I love it.
You're my baby brother. I'm like, no, man. Like, I'm twice your age,
Yeah,
right? Like at this
exactly.
point,
You're
right?
my baby brother.
It's a crazy. But I do remember, and that's where I met Herby, because that's when he first started doing some announcing, just right at the cusp of the Raptors.
I remember that Tomjanovich asked for refs to ref their practices because their practices were actually harder than their games. Because remember, they were winning by
they were
30,
so
40. Like, they won by what they wanted. So I went down to do their practices, and a lot of it was practice. But then when they scrimmaged, that's when they wanted the refs. So I was sitting there, and Shaq's flip-flops or whatever other shoes he had were there. So I put my foot in. Well, I had to put both feet in to fit. Oh, sure enough, Shaq comes over, and I'm thinking I'm dead, right? Kind of like what you're talking about. He's so intimidating. He goes, "Take your feet out of my shoes," and all this, and then I go, "I'm sorry, sir. I couldn't believe." And then he starts laughing, right? And I was like, "Whoo, thank gosh."
Well, I know, he probably hadn't needed to put those shoes on because he's got the ugliest feet I've ever seen. For
there you go.
blood.
It was fun.
So you've done all this, in terms of NCAA, NFL, NBA, locally as well too. Can I just swing things here locally? I know that there's been a call for officiating to be taken a little bit more seriously. Respect given to officials, because it's easy to yell at a referee, right? It's what we do as sports fans. That we need referees. And in the biggest of ways, because enrollment in sports, in all sports, women's sports, men's sports, basketball, hockey, everything's rising, but we're losing officiating. How do we get more officials involved in the game?
That's a great question, because for me, I started when I was 14 years old, but it was easy for me because our family did it. Like my dad did it, right? So it was in the household, and sometimes we want to be like that. So, and I've heard stories too, to your point about increasing numbers, where they haven't put sheets of ice in arenas because there's no refs to do the games.
Right.
So why even go through the expense of putting the ice in? And that's a sad, sad thing. So we have to make it, when you start out in your first 3 to 5 years, it has to be enjoyable, might not be the right word, but it can't be something where you despise it. In other words, we have to have either no fans or fans that don't react to officiating, because that's what will turn people off. And you won't get young people. So the best thing I did when I was refereeing, I would recruit other young people as a part-time job. We all worked at a gas station. We worked at a corner store. We worked in a mall, a restaurant, whatever we did growing up. But to me, the officiating was another part-time job as a student that I could do. And it's got to be fun. And there's a mentor, the guy we know, 2'6", Peter Moore. We grew up, and he was a two-sport official, basketball and football, like me. And I would referee so many games with him, and he made it fun. And he protected me from probably players and fans, spectators, parents, from getting on me. And I had probably thicker skin than most. So we got to get young people in it. It can be a part-time job, and it's also got to be enjoyable. Or just, if it isn't enjoyable, it can't be a negative. Like, you can't leave there with irate fans chasing you to your car, that kind of thing, right? And it's very important because it's for the continuation of these sports and kids. It's the third team on the floor, and you need them, or there's no game. Great question.
And women as well, too.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, because look at the PWHL, right? Like, you look at the officials; those are women officials.
That's right.
That are highly trained and have gotten themselves involved. And I think that's the wonderful thing about that league, is that there are going to be perhaps young women that say, "I don't want to play, but I want to be a ref."
And it's great. Like, I call it a part-time job in that too. It's, if you're in high school right now, you're playing. Well, what's the next thing? Are you going to go to college, university? Are you going to play at that level? Well, get into officiating. We need young people to do it. So That's a tough question where I don't know if there's a perfect answer, because at the other end, it's newly retired people.
Right.
That, a lot of people can retire young right now, 55
Sure.
and maybe around that
Sure.
age. Another great thing to get into as a little bit gets you out of the house, makes you a few bucks.
Yeah. Keeps you in shape.
Yeah.
Running up and down with the young kids.
Exactly. So those are the two examples, I think, where we need to use them and get people.
Or maybe you just weren't good enough to turn pro, and then you want to be still close to that
Into the
sport.
game, yeah.
I think of a guy, and I don't know what his abilities were in the football field. I think he was okay. Jason Maggio from Burlington,
Right.
Who's been with the CFL for how long?
Yeah, 25 years, right? Did numerous Grey Cups, and Jason Maggio is a great example of that. A really good athlete who then got into officiating, so he's made a few bucks over the years, and he's also done Grey Cups, which is more important to him than the bucks, of course.
Sure.
But yeah, that's a great example. There's so many other ones that we covered on our Halton Sports Week show that we could probably use as remember Cara Lang too? Like if she, with injuries, like she was national team soccer and all that, but if she wasn't into coaching, she'd be great at officiating.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if I remember correctly, youngest woman to ever score a goal, 15 years old for the national team, the national women's team. And yeah, she was spectacular. And unfortunately, knee injuries kind of slowed her down, and then she ended up meeting Ricky Romano.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Getting
St.
married
Thomas
to him.
Aquinas High School to Ricky. That's pretty cool.
Isn't that something else?
Yeah.
Well, it's been really cool having you here, talking about what you do. I got to say thank you again for not only coming here and sharing some great stories and stuff, but for all that you do, as you said, officiating. Again, it takes a certain person to be able to do what they do, know as much about the sport as you do, be able to translate it to people as well too, and keep the peace as well too.
Keep the peace.
Keep the peace as well too. So again, many years. I mean, our conversations. I can't wait to have you back again. We'll talk about something else. There are other stuff we can get into, but I'll leave it here. Thank you for joining us again. Great local guy. You do so much for the area. You've done so much for sport in the area, and I can say that because I saw it all. I saw it all. So thank you very much, Steve.
And likewise, you and I, we grew up together. We're not spending every day together sometimes, but we're always close, and I really appreciate that, and wish you well with this podcast thing too, a new venture, and being on the first week. It's honored to be called out for it. To think of me for it is a pretty cool, special thing, and let's do it again.
Yeah, look forward to it there, Steve.
Awesome. Little fist bump.
Let's do it. Back to the old times, man. Hey, folks, so as we put, today's podcast to bed, I will leave you with this request. You know what? If you have a local team to promote, believe an athlete deserves a little love, some public attention, have an outstanding idea, or you really just want to talk some sports right here on this red cozy couch, the Sportsline Podcast wants you. They can contact me on many of our CHCH social media platforms, and we'll set something up. If you can, hit that thumbs up and subscribe button for the outstanding minds and hands that make this podcast possible. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll chat tomorrow.